let me ask you this.
Sure.
Your new back attacks instructional. First of all, awesome.
Yeah.
Second of all, you drop
Thanks.
you drop a lot of fascinating insights in there. But you quote Galileo, out of all people, in saying that you can't teach a man anything; you can only help him find it within himself. So, we talked about how to start in jiu-jitsu. What about if we zoom out even more, and how do you learn how to learn? How do you optimize the learning process?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you what I like to do. And I would say, like, I can't. Step one, I'm not. Maybe this is a little bit easier for me because I've never had a ton of friends. Honestly, I've got my close friends and people that I know, but I've never had tons and tons of people. So I spend a lot of time, thinking. And anyway, I can't. I can't control you. I can't control anybody else. Um, all I want to take my I guess the Marcus Aurelius thing. It's like, I guess the trick to life is figuring out what's in our control and what's not, and focusing on the things that are in our control, I guess. And so step one is figuring out both internally and then also out in the world as it pertains to jiu-jitsu, what is actually in my control and what is not. Like, passing someone's guard is not in your control. People think it is, it ain't. If I can't just do an activity and be unchecked, then it ain't in my control entirely. I can always breathe. I can always, be calm. I can always, no matter whether I'm concerned or not concerned, have whatever you want to call it, nerves. I can step forward across the line and say, I will face the challenge ahead. That is all entirely. No one can stop me from doing that. That's entirely my control, and that's why I know that every single time that I walk into the ring, I'll walk in and out of there with my head held high because I will fight with everything that I have. I can't promise that I'll win. I would say I'd take that same first principles you mentioned last time we talked, with Elon and the importance of that and going, what are the first principles? And I guess to come back, a lot of times, in my opinion, the things that people think are the basics are not the basics. You can't learn if you think you're reasoning for first principles, but you're actually like level 6. You're actually like layers up. You're making there's so many baked in assumptions to what's going on that you're going to struggle to understand why anything is actually happening internally, externally, you name it. So I guess what I would start when it comes to learning is first principles and trying to understand what's going on, but then also simple things first. I can control my posture. I can control my breathing. No one can stop me from doing that. I can control where I place my frames. I can control where I place my limbs. I can move my feet. I can develop the ability to do these things better, of course. And I do that through practice, through drilling, through watching people. I've been incredibly fortunate in my time in martial arts to train with many of my heroes, to
Yeah.
train with many of the people that I looked at. And I was like, that guy is amazing. I want to train with this person. Like Stephen Thompson, Kenny Florian, George St. Pierre, Raymond Daniels, Faraz Zahabi, like Bruno Frazado, Marcelo Garcia, all of these guys that are just unbelievable. And I go, well, they're moving in a way that's different. Well, how do I do that? Well, sometimes you can ask them and they can tell you directly. Other times part of the genius of what they do is that it's intuitive and maybe they don't think and understand and see the world the same way that I do. That was something that I experienced with Marcelo. He's amazing, but in a different way than it just, we see things fundamentally differently. We experience the world differently. It seems to me that we do. And again, that taught me a really important lesson because I was wanting when I trained there to have someone go, "Hey, Ryan, do this, 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 and this," and that's how it works. And I'm like, "All right," because that's how I understood martial arts at the time. Um, I wasn't ready to have someone tell me like, "Hey, um, it feels a little bit like this," and I just kind of do it, which is kind of what Marcelo would do at the time. As he was less experienced as a teacher, but that is what he was doing. I couldn't separate in my mind performance and understanding. I thought that if I understand, I could do it. And I would also struggle sometimes to wonder why I couldn't execute things that I thought I understood.
Hmm.
And why guys like Marcelo were just so elemental. I mean, in like the like lightning, wind, like that type of thing. Where like it's just so in touch with what they wanted, with their capabilities. They could summon their powers at will. I couldn't always do that. And I guess so, recognizing that there was more than one way to the top of the mountain. And also I had a lot of science, but I didn't have a lot of art. Or I had some science, I should say, but I didn't have a lot of art. meeting people like Marcelo taught me, and then Josh Waitskin, actually brilliant guy, chess champion, former owner, maybe owner of Marcelo's Academy, really great friend.
I think he has a book on learning.
He does, yeah, the art of learning,
The
actually.
art of learning, yeah.
But yeah, he knows a thing or two about it. But great guy. And anyway, he sat me down one time and was like, "Look, man, you're doing this wrong. You're missing the genius, the brilliance that's right in front of you." And it took me
What
a long
did he
time
mean exactly?
that I was frustrated with my inability to grasp certain things, and sometimes the teaching style being different. Not wrong, just it was tough for me at the time.
So
What
you were
my
trying to replicate what Marcelo was saying as opposed to understanding the fundamentals from which it was coming.
Right, I couldn't see where it was coming from, and also sometimes I'm like, well, why can't you explain it in the way that I would want you to explain
Right.
it? And he's like, well, why can't I meet
Nobody
him where
will.
he's coming from?
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a really important time and lesson, very very frustrating if I'm honest, but it's not. I'm so thankful for that time. And anyway, I
So
guess,
always first principles, trying to understand the basics.
and
First, starting at the place where you can control things, the very basic elements of what you can work with, and then when there's other mentors and teachers to
meet them where they're coming from,
meet them with
to the extent that I can. Rather, I'm not like, again, it's like, why are you not talking to me the way I want you to talk to me,
Right.
as opposed to, hey, where are you coming from? Back to your point.
Yeah.
But and I know that's not entirely specific, but like if you can focus on that, and back to the whole, you can't teach a man anything. Marcelo didn't teach me anything, but he taught me in so doing, like, and other people like that to find it within. And it's like, yeah, I guess something else that I've heard before is that all learning is self-discovery, but all performance is self-expression.
Mm.
And I always thought that Marcelo was a brilliant master of letting what's inside out. He was so consistent in his performances. And a lot of times I felt like there was a block there personally, particularly at the end of jiu-jitsu when I was very, very results oriented, and I wasn't. I think my focus was not ideal. It was definitely not in the place that I would like it to be. And whether I would have won more or lost more, hard to say. But I know that I would have performed better if I'd have adjusted that. And anyway, that recognizing that, again, jujitsu. I think I've said it before. Jujitsu studied as a science, but expressed as an art. It doesn't matter if you can articulate what you know how to do. What matters is if you can do what you know how to do. It only matters if you're, I guess, if you're teaching in a verbal fashion, is whether or not you can articulate it. But recognizing the difference between learning on an intellectual level or a conceptual level and being able to translate that into the physical. And I guess, like, that's been the thing that I feel like fortunate over time in my own academy, to be able to kind of fiddle around and learn on my own and practice my students. And sometimes I've struggled to have great training partners. Like, when I say great training partner, I mean other world-class people to spar, to roll with. But I've gotten a lot more, honestly, than I ever would have thought, out of being able to practice and learn and fail and try and succeed in my own, without like my own little sandbox.
Mhm.
Figuring out how I can take an idea and then come up with drills and drills to practice it,
Mhm.
so that I can actually practice putting it into play. Because again, knowing an idea and then not drilling, well, what's the point? I'll never have it. It'll never see the light of day.